Hi there, Malcolm here for my 392nd Booktube video, and today I'm bringing you a book review for Invincible Volume 4 by Robert Kirkman. New bind-up collects Invincible numbers 0 and numbers 20 through 24. I have been watching the TV show as well, however I've stopped at episode 5. Much of what takes place in here corresponds to episodes 4 and 5 for the most part. This basically continues the adventures of Mark Grayson, the son of Omni-Man, this universe's equivalent of Superman, who's now developed his superpowers and is trying to be a superhero, trying to be a boyfriend, trying to be a friend, a son, and a kid at college. And in this one, he makes the big step of letting his girlfriend know that he is a superhero. She's gotten very suspicious lately. He keeps disappearing off when there's a crisis going on, no sign of him. Invincible turns up, resolves the problem, disappears off again, and then he turns up, having apparently gone and hid or something. And her conclusion is he's dealing drugs. And by this point, there's quite a few people who know Mark's secret, which is fine. Mark thinks, I haven't got a nemesis, it's not a problem. Unfortunately, by the end of this volume, he's got a nemesis. A man who can move through dimensions, tried doing a thing, of which Mark may or may not have messed up. This also continues the Omni-Man storyline, something that is wrapped up very quickly in a single episode of the show, where one of Mark's classmates has started taking people and turning them into cyborgs for his secret army. There's a couple of nods to this going on, although that has not been resolved yet. He also travels to Midnight City, their equivalent of Gotham, which is cast into perpetual darkness due to some curse or something, where he confronts Darkwing's sidekick who's taken on Darkwing's mantle, but not in a good way. And it also reveals that this individual's got some weird interdimensional powers of his own, into some sort of weird shadow realm. The encounter is quickly resolved, but I have a feeling that we're going to see more of this shadow realm thing later on. Quite an interesting concept there. We also get a bit of story from Alan the Alien's point of view. He cropped up in the first book, and quite early on in the show, I seem to recall, and he fights Mark in Earth's orbit. And it turns out he travels to planets to see if they've got someone strong enough to defend it on their own, and if they're tough enough to beat him, then he considers them to be a worthy protector of that planet. And from his last encounter with Mark, on a much more friendly basis, he's learned a few things, and he's taken these things he's learned back to his home base to report on the situation there, only to be nearly murdered shortly afterwards, due to there being a leak in the council. So there's something going on way out in deep space with poor Alan the Alien. I've not seen that in the show yet. Another thing that has happened in the show is that Atom Eve has hung up her superhero cape, and she's gone to nature to nurture the people there and do good in the ways that she feels more beneficial. Not a particularly exciting storyline, but doesn't spend too much time on that. It's just significant character from the first few books is now doing something different. And by episode 5 of the show, we learn that Robot of the Guardians of the Globe has some ulterior motive. Not necessarily sinister, but he's up to something. And it's clear in this one he's also up to something, but it's unfolding in a different way. Anyway, it's been a big reveal, which hasn't exactly told me anything. It's rather interesting. But in both cases, there's something going on. And this also contains Invincible number 0, which features at the back and basically gives the secret origins of some of the characters. So we have the secret origin of a monster girl, how she came into her power and how it works. Now we'd already learned that every time she hulks out, she becomes physically younger, but in the origin we learn also, not only does she become younger, but her Hulk version becomes bigger and stronger. And so the more she does it, the more powerful she becomes in the alternate form, but the younger she becomes in her normal form. Rex Splode, a particularly unlikable character in the show and in the book, has a similar sort of power to Gambit from the X-Men. We learn how he came to this power. We also learn about his history, and it kind of explains why he's a complete jackass. Doesn't excuse it, but there is an explanation as to why he behaves the way he does. The Immortal, one of the original members of the Guardians of the Globe, who has a very interesting history, but don't actually get an origin story per se, beyond, I remember an accident long ago. So, some accident, and it looks like he's wielding some sword. But also a surprising reveal about the way he looks, and how he looks very similar to a established historical figure. They're one and the same, which is a fun little reveal there. We also got Duplicate, who's able to produce multiple versions of herself, who can die and it doesn't matter. But we also learn that she has a twin brother called Paul, or Multi-Paul. I love it. Duplicate and Multiple. But we don't know anything about where he is. He's disappeared. And then finally, Atom Eve's origin story, or part of it. We get the origin, but there's certainly something that still happens and is alluded to between the end of the origin story and where we meet her in the first volume, the first episode. And each of those has been drawn out by some guest artists, so you've got a nice variety of looks and styles. Nothing too out there, but it was nice having a little variety of art styles there. And I really appreciate it. That was a fun little addition, just to give the origin story of some of the characters. Definitely booktastic. I'm really enjoying this. I think I'll hold off watching episode 6 until I've read book 5, or started reading book 5. And I think at that point, we've caught up with where I've got to on the show. For the most part, and as I keep saying in these videos, there's a big thing that happens in book 2 that hasn't happened yet in the show. And it's quite a massive, significant bit. Have you been reading or watching Invincible? What do you think about it? Do you think we need more Alan the Alien in it? Comment down below, please. But as usual, if you have nothing nice to say, then please keep it to yourself. Thank you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and other YouTube things if you want. Until next time, see you later.